You might feel like that right now. That there were once glory days in the church. There was once wonderful days when the Spirit of God moved. But what's happening now? Then God tells them that He's still there. No matter what we see with our eyes, no matter what we experience, God is still here. He says, my Spirit remaineth among you. I'm still here. Just like I've always been. But God is saying, Abraham is gone. Moses is gone. David is gone. Solomon is gone. The first temple is gone. But I am still here. Fear not! He's telling them and He's telling us today, forget about the past. Forget about who isn't here. Forget about the things you don't have any longer. Those things that are gone and they're gone forever. In spite of that, God is here. He has never left us. His power is still the same. Therefore, keep working. Don't look back to the past. Don't worry about who's here. Focus on who is. Don't be intimidated by the daunting circumstances that surround us. The Lord has never left us, and He never will. That's what Hebrews 13 and 5, verse 5 says. We often get caught up in the same trap, dear brothers and sisters. We often get so trapped in this type of thinking. We look at how things used to be, forgetting that God of yesterday is still the same God and is able to bless today. Our duty is to forget the past and reach forth into the future. The work is His work. Remember, it's not the work of a man or a church. He stands just as ready to bless us today as He did years ago. He will not leave us, nor will He forsake us. He will meet with us, dwell among us, bless us for His glory. He has not changed. Our primary concern is that we remember Him and His glory. And as we keep our eyes focused in His direction, everything will be okay. It's not the numbers that He's seeing. It's not the wealth that He's seeing. It's not all our decorations and wealth that He sees. He sees our hearts. He said He won't leave us. And some of us think that because we don't have like we used to have, He's left us. No, God doesn't leave us. He's the same. He made a promise. And so He's speaking to the children of Israel and He's saying to them, you are disturbed because you have a temple that is much lesser in value that you had before, and you're crying about that. Do you think I am moved by the value of your temple? I don't change. I said I will never leave you. So it doesn't matter if it was a big golden temple or what you have now. I'm still the same. I won't leave you. Look at the second part of verse 3. The comparisons we make. God asks the people this question. And I believe He's asking us this question this morning. How do you see it now? Is it not in your eyes in comparison of it as nothing? What really happened was the older people wept when they saw the new temple. As they remembered the old one. They remembered the gold covering and they cried their hearts out. It was real pain for them. When they saw this new temple, it was nothing in comparison to the old. It seemed that it was not worth their time or their energy. They were very, very discouraged. Dear brothers and sisters, if we are not careful, we too will get caught up in the comparison game. The comparison game is not a good game for the church or for God's people. When we do it, we can be so easily disappointed. You know, we compare families. We compare husbands. We compare wives. We compare children. Have you heard that? Oh, you bunch of children we got, you're hopeless. The other people's children are better. Comparison. When we do this, we bring a lot of disappointments. The comparison game does not help anybody. We compare the church and how we remember it being. We remember the past as being better than the present. And then we are disappointed. I know amongst us we have a few that are from the past, and they will remember the great glory of the past and how God blessed us and did some impossible things in our midst. But those glory days we can't look back at. We can't say how wonderful it was, having the many thousands, and having such a great crowd of people worshipping on a Sunday morning, and now we can count the people in one hand. It's foolish to play the comparison game, because only God is qualified to make the proper comparisons. Remember the story of Jesus and Peter. This is very important for us. You'll find it in John 21. 3 times Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me?" 3 times Peter responds in the affirmative. Then Jesus tells Peter to feed the sheep. And he even tells Peter something about how he will die. Then Peter looks at John, the beloved disciple of Jesus, John, and says, "What about him?" You get the picture? Jesus is speaking to Peter and tells Peter, "Feed my sheep." Then he goes on a little further to tell him how he will die. That was his message. But he goes on to say, "What about Peter? Can you tell us anything? John, can you tell us about John?" And what was Jesus' reply to this in John 21 verses 20 and 21? In fact, in 22, the Lord responds by telling Peter, what happens with John is none of his business. Isn't that so? It's none of your business what's Peter going to expect and how he's going to die. It's not your business what's happening in that home and how God's blessed them. It's not your business to compare that church with the other church. We are not in the comparison business. It's none of our business. What they are doing, is it your business to be a scandaler and a gossiper? No. That's what you're supposed to say. If we are not careful, we can become a source of disappointment and discouragement for others. Can you hear the older folks in that days as they talked about the glories of Solomon's temple and belittle the humble temple that was rising up from the ground before them? If we're not careful, we can be against what God is doing and be discouraging others in their walk with God. We can kill their enthusiasm for the work of the Lord by being negative towards anything that isn't the same it was 20 years, 30 years ago. And so we need to be very careful. And so what's the cure for disappointment? When we find ourselves looking at the high mountain of disappointment, how do we get over it? This passage offers a couple of simple steps we can take to conquer disappointment in our lives. Verses 3 and 4. We must go. We must go. The Jews had to let go of the memories of the first temple. This temple will never be as grand as the first. And they had to accept this fact. The past had to be relegated to the past if they were going to accomplish anything in the present. Stop comparing the past with the present. And dear brothers and sisters, in a spiritual sense, this is the truth we need to apply to our own lives. It may be that you need to let go of some painful memory of the past. Only God knows that. It may mean that you need to forgive someone, even though they don't admit it. They have done everything wrong. It may be that you need to go or need to let go of some dream that is always pulling you in the wrong direction. Regardless of what it is today, if it is holding you back, you need to let it go. Let it go. Whatever is holding you back, as hard as it may be for you, you must let go of the past. The past should not dictate to you about your future. You must let go of the past. Until you do, you will never be able to move into the future. And so we must let go of the past. Whatever it is, no matter how hard it's been, no matter how deep the hurt, no matter how deep the gash in your life, if you are going to make a success of your lives, and if you are going to be an instrument of joy to the Lord, you must let go of the past. The past is finished. That's what it means. It's past. We can't cry over it. Now, I got a call one night from one of our hospitals, and we had one of our young ladies there, and the sister at the hospital called me because we sent her there, and they had everything set up for the morning tea, and she had gone over and drank all the milk up. And the sister caught her and called me and said, this is what she's done. And so I said, put her on the line, let me talk to her. And you know, you must understand, this hospital was a hospital not far from us. It was so especially with people with just one or two nuts loose. You know that term? Just a few nuts. Some of them had just one or two. Some weren't too bad, but she was sometimes here, sometimes there, and she drank all the milk up. And when I spoke to her, she said, "You can't cry over spilled milk." That was her response to my question. So, whatever is in the past is in the past. Let it be. It's finished. You can't cry over spilled milk. Now, let it go. I thought that was a good answer. I mean, she drank the milk. It's over now. What can we do? We can't ask her to get the milk back. And so, we must let it go. Whatever is in the past. God will give us the grace, and He will give us the strength to go forward. But if we carry that baggage, it'll be too heavy, I can assure you. Secondly, we must look up. The people are called to look up in verse 4. They're called to turn their eyes away from their pain, their problems and their disappointments, to view God was greater than anything they faced. 6 times in our scripture, we are reading the word Lord of hosts. Have you come across that? Lord of hosts. The word of hosts really speaks of armies of both earth and heaven. He's just not the Lord of the armies of heaven, but he's also the Lord of the armies of earth. So he's the Lord of hosts. He's got all power and all authority. The word hosts speaks of the Lord Almighty. Now, do you understand that term? Almighty. He's the Almighty One. There's no one as mighty as he.